Welcome to Doc Johnson's Traveling Miracle Medicine Show. It's a little bit of a combination of history, education, and entertainment. The entertainment part, well, I put that at the end for a reason. You'll understand why in a few moments. The old medicine show was a staple of the American West and the Southeast, really all over the country. In 1895, there were 400 medically trained doctors in the entire country. That is one doctor for every 157,000 people. The rest of them were apprentices and people who had studied under a real working doctor for a couple of years and then went out to ply the trade. So most folks got their health care from either one of these shows or one of those apprentices, unless you happen to be lucky enough to live in an area where they actually had a doctor. And I'm sorry I don't have a microphone. This is for recording. Sorry I don't have a microphone on for the show, but I typically don't perform in this setting, and I try to keep it historically accurate so I don't use a sound system. Sorry. You're probably better off for it in the long run, actually. The old medicine show was made up of pretty bad jokes. Not dirty, just bad. They call them dad jokes today. A little bit of music. You heard about all you're going to hear when I played the roller organ. And magic. And most of the jokes were puns and plays on words. Now, I do use bits of scripts from old time traveling medicine shows. So please don't be offended by anything in it that sounds like it might today not be quite politically correct. It's historically accurate. And I keep it that way because I do a lot of museums and a lot of libraries, things like that. I do not sell my elixir. Somebody asked me why. I told them I keep it historically accurate, so I advertise it in the show at $2 a bottle, which amounts to $76 today. If you go back to 1895, it cost me almost $3 a bottle to make. So I did some math, and I realized that even if I sell it in bulk and got a bigger wagon, I still couldn't make a profit. So I will try to get you to buy it, but I don't want to sell it to you if I can help it. All right, that's enough. I try to keep the history of the show a little bit. I do want to tell you one other thing, a couple other things real quick. The biggest and most historically loved patent medicine, that's what it's called, was a fellow from Louisiana, New Orleans, Louisiana. Senator Dudley LeBlanc started a company named Hadacol. Some folks may have heard of it. It was the most popular elixir out there. In 1951, he did his final show down at Lakewood Fairgrounds in Atlanta, Georgia, and the cast of the show, he brought the three shows he had together, he had out running around together, and the cast consisted, now some of you younger folks won't recognize these names, if some of you may, but the show consisted of basically George Burns and Gracie Allen, Red Skelton, Bob Hope, Jack Benny and Rochester, Rudy Valley, Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz, and the show was musical entertainment was Hank Williams Sr. and Judy Garland. Now, if you bought a ticket to a show today with that kind of star power that those were back then, it cost you hundreds of dollars, if not thousands. You got to see the show for free. All you had to do was listen to the advertisements and maybe hopefully take home a bottle of Hadacol. By the way, do you know why they named it Hadacol? Because they had to call it something. There were joke books written about it. There are records. I've got several 78 RPMs of the Hadacol Boogie. It was incredibly popular. One of the jokes in the book was, you know, the old lady over in the next county, 86 years old, passed away the other day. She'd been taking her Hadacol her entire life, but they did manage to save the baby. Think about that one for a minute. All right, let's get the show going. Every peddler of the elixir had a way of drawing a crowd. One of the primary ways was to do something that would get attention and people would want to follow you back to the wagon and see the show. Doc Black was a good example. He would come into town, he'd lay down a skull and a Bible, and a piece of rope, and he'd just stand there and look at them. Then he'd kind of move around, change this one to here and this one to here. People would stop and see what he was doing. And eventually, when he saw he had enough people out there in the crowd, crowd is called a tip. When he had enough people in the tip, he would go back to the wagon and do the show and never mention those items again. They'd done their job. Well, you're not that lucky. Some of them did what we call the noisy approach. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, and welcome to Doc Johnson's Traveling Miracle Medicine Show. Thank you, kind folks. Friends and neighbors, you're probably wondering why Doc Johnson has come to your fair community today. Well, I'm here for two reasons. One is to entertain you, hopefully let you hear a joke, see a magic trick, hear some music that you've never experienced before in your entire life. But far more importantly, I'm here to make you happier and healthier than you ever had the opportunity to be in the past. Friends and neighbors, we're all traveling down a rough and rocky road. As we play out our final act here on this great planet Earth, we want to make sure everything we have done made it smoother and less bumpy throughout our entire life. There's a way to do that, friends and neighbors, and it's right there in that little bottle. I'll tell you more about it in a few moments. Before I do that, I want to get the show started the way I was taught by the old traveling medicine show salesman. He said, son, when you get out there on that road, you want to start every performance off with the sharpest trick you know. Now bear with me, I just use these puns to kind of needle the audience a little bit. Sort of in hopes that you'll get the point. Because when it comes right down to it, to be perfectly honest, this particular trick has quite a few holes in it. But it does give me a chance to kind of string the audience along at the beginning of the show. And if everything goes well, start each and every performance for it with a bang. I apologize. Now, folks, I've traveled a great deal around this world and I've seen many amazing things. Nothing that astounded me more than the silver rings of the Orient. This was taught to me by one of the greatest prestidigitators of the Far East. By the way, do you folks know what a prestidigitator is?
No idea.
Prestidigitator, presto, it comes from Greek or Latin, one of those languages we no longer speak. Digits come from the hand, the fingers, presto, digits. And taters come from Idaho. Ladies and gentlemen, the mystery of the silver rings using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rings, all of solid steel. And yet, when I take 2 of those rings and place them in close proximity like so and blow on them, one ring seems to melt right through the other. Now, that gives us 2 rings of solid steel. But the man who taught me that, by the way, his name was Dr. Fu-Ling Yu. The man who taught me this said, son, you get back to America, you're not going to prove to anyone you know the mystery of the silver rings with only 2 rings. By the way, he also said if you blow on them, once they're together, they will magically melt apart. But he said, son, you get back to America, you can link 2 rings together. That won't prove to anybody you're a master of the silver rings. He said, as a matter of fact, you could link 3 rings in midair just like that. That won't prove to anybody that you're a master of the silver rings. But
did you do this?
Very well. He said, if you really want to prove to anybody you know the mystery of the silver rings, link all 5 just like that, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. The mystery of the silver rings, presented to you by Doc Johnson.
I am wondering how he did that.
Very well. All right, I need a volunteer. How about you? Come on up.
Me.
Got one right here. I'll maybe get to you. What is your name?
Monita.
Monica? Very nice. Monita. Very nice to meet you, Monita. I'm hard of hearing. My eyes are bad.
No, they're not.
I'm going to ask you, can you follow directions?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know what this is?
Toilet paper?
No. It is not toilet tissue. It is theatrical tissue. We are doing a theatrical event, therefore this is theatrical tissue. There you go, Monita. Take that.
Thank you.
I'm going to take myself a little bit here. Now, I'm going to ask you to follow my directions, to do everything I do. Take the paper, tear it in half.
Okay.
Close enough.
Okay.
Try it one more time. Tear it a little bit more. Now take it and wad it up in your hand just like that. Make a nice big wad out of it, just like that, okay?
Okay.
This is the important part. Very tricky. Watch closely. Do exactly what I do.
Okay. How do you do that? Keep going. What the heck? How did you?
Oh!
Did not twist. You're done. Keep going.
Let's have a big round of applause for Juanita, my assistant. Thank you. Thank you. Friends, I like to teach a little magic when I'm traveling around. I like to show folks something they can go home and do. Very simple. Go home, get yourself a piece of cardboard, shingle off your daddy's barn, something like this that you can paint solid and then put a dot on one side. The first side has 1 dot. The second side, you want to put 4 dots, just like that. On the third side, you put 3 dots, just like that. And on the fourth side, you put 6 dots, just like that. Now, most of you may have figured out how I'm doing this. When I turn and show you the first dot, I'm really covering one with my hand. When I turn it over and say I'm showing you 4 dots, I'm covering one with my hand. This is where it gets tricky. When you turn it around and say you're showing 3 dots, you're really just covering a space that's empty. But the psychology of the human mind makes you believe you're seeing a 3rd dot there. Everybody in the audience will believe that. Same thing on the other side. When you turn it over and say 6, theoretically there is a dot under my hand. It's just an empty space. Now occasionally you will have someone who is doubting, like this gentleman here. Be ready to show them that 3rd dot. Same thing on the other side. When you turn it over, somebody will ask to see that 6th dot. Be sure you show it to them. More importantly, if you want to really find out if your audience is paying attention, how many dots are on that side? How many on the other side? Sorry, there's 8.
What? Are you juicing your things out of your sleeve?
Nothing up my sleeve but my elbows. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you'll be able to hear me tell you about this skull. This skull belonged to one of the most historical figures in the world.
Actually, it's just
This is the skull of Cleopatra, Queen of the Nile. Now, my granddaddy traveled about the world. He traveled to Egypt. And when he was in Egypt, a man there sold him this skull and said, Doc, you want to take this back to America and show it to all your audiences. My granddaddy was traveling through the rest of Egypt and ran into another man who had the skull also supposedly of Cleopatra he bought from the same gentleman. They did not like that. So they went back to Cairo where the man was and had him clarify the situation, and he did to both of their satisfaction. What they had not noticed, the other man's skull was much smaller. Turned out he had the skull of Cleopatra as a young woman. My granddaddy had the skull of Cleopatra as a grown woman. So this is the skull of Cleopatra as a full-grown woman. You may come up later and take a closer look if you desire.
Why did Cleopatra have such bad teeth?
Well, it's an old skull. When I was a young man, a magician came to my town. He performed in our local opera house, and he did something that led me on the road to magic. He took his young assistant, placed her in a large wooden box, took a big saw and cut her right in half, spread the pieces apart, then brought them back together, and she stepped out. I vowed that one day I would be able to do that illusion. I went home immediately, got some boards and lumber out of my daddy's barn, built myself a box, then I went in the house and got my sister. Probably not the smartest thing I've ever done. Probably the reason I have two half-sisters now, one in Alabama and one in Mississippi. So it occurred to me there's probably a safer way to do that. I built myself a little wooden box, just like that. Jump in there, run around, see if there's any trap doors or hidden spots you can see. Looks pretty normal, right? No, careful, be careful. Now, it occurred to me also that if I used assistants that were not human flesh, but cardboard, paper, print, that I might get a better result. Something like those that would probably work out a little better. At least there wouldn't be any screaming and yelling. So I took those, placed them in the box, like so. And realized that I could actually do that. Well, that side doesn't want to cooperate. Well, at least I had done the half-sister thing.
Excuse me?
Now, the thing is, I couldn't finish the trick because, see, to do that, you got to be able to pull the middle out just like that. And that's a physical impossibility. It can't be done. So I'm still working on it. But if I ever work that part out, I promise I will come back to this town and show you how it works. Because if I'd been able to do that, I wouldn't be able to go down to the railroad station tonight and play a card game with my buddies. So you can see it's a physical impossibility. But I managed to make some part of it work. Thank you. Now I could use another volunteer up here. How about you? Step up here. What's your name?
Nixon.
Nixon. All right, Nixon, are you pretty good at remembering things? All right, turn around and face the audience. Now, folks, this is an illusion that involves the mind. I am going to attempt to place a thought in Nixon's head. I'm going to attempt to let him read my mind. I'm going to make a prediction. I'm going to predict that Nixon will pick one of these cards without ever seeing it. Actually, I think we're going to go with that one. I'll place it here on, well, rather than place it on top of the deck, let me put it over here so you can keep it inside at all times. Now, this is the tricky part, Nixon. I need you to take a look at that and, I'm sorry, take a look at that and place your finger on one of those cards, any one. Just put your finger on it. Is that the one you want? All right, that one right there. Now, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. Hold it right there and don't let anybody see it. How many of you believe I've accurately predicted the card that Nixon would choose? Pretty good. Nixon, turn it around and show them how accurate I was. Oh. Well, I wouldn't be much of a magician if I couldn't accurately predict that card, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, sir. Have a seat. Folks, while I was over in the Far East learning the ring trick, I was taught this by the same gentleman. It involves a black silk handkerchief, a white silk handkerchief, and a tin can, empty except, of course, for the palm of my hand. I place those handkerchiefs into the tin can, say the magic words, and wave my hand over the, you know what? In this case, it wouldn't be magic words. It would be a magic incantation. Some of you got that. Great googly moogly. And lo and behold, the black silk handkerchief has turned white and the white silk handkerchief has turned black. Yeah, that's more of a response than it deserves. Folks, it occurred to me there's a better way to do this. If I took those handkerchiefs and placed them in the container like so, reached up here, took the dots off the can and threw those in, said the magic incantation, great googly moogly, I'd wind up with a black silk handkerchief with white dots and a white silk handkerchief with black dots and a tin can, empty except, of course, for the palm of my hand. I am going to now attempt something that I've never done in my life. I do not want anyone here to go home and try this. I have been practicing for many years. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Friends and neighbors, let me tell you a little bit about Wizard Water. This will cure everything listed on the label. That includes apoplexy, curiousness, jabbering, jesting, jousting, insipidity, insistence, the humdrums, discombobulation, consternation, insolence, indolence, youthful indiscretion, and falling downstairs. If we can't fix it, you ain't got it. Now, many of the salesmen out on the road today will tell you that their elixir comes from someone in the Far East or from some Native American medicine shaman. This is highly scientific. I will even tell you the ingredients. It is a compound substance of feebly ionized hydrogen and hydroxyl ions. Hydrogen and oxygen in proportion of 2 volumes of the former to 1 volume of the latter. The essential constituent of all living organisms and the color and luster of a diamond. Nothing on the planet Earth can survive without what's in this little bottle, and from us you get it in its purest form. $2 a bottle, but we have a family package this week. We'll let you have 4 bottles for $5.
Okay, I'll
So come up here and take that home with you when you leave. Every magician has a favorite trick. I'm going to present mine to you now. Anybody here ever hear of Dahlonega, Georgia? Dahlonega, Georgia was the home of the very first gold rush in America. In 1828, Benjamin Parks discovered gold there, and the town was built around it. It was so big that the mint in Dahlonega managed to get Dahlonega electricity before Atlanta was supplied with it. The gold rush continued until 1849 when they all started going to California. How many of you have ever heard the term, there's gold in them thar hills? The mayor of Dahlonega stood on the balcony of the courthouse, and what he actually said was, please don't leave and go west. There's gold in those hills. And it got interpreted into there's gold in them there hills. This is a copy of the Dahlonega Nugget from Dahlonega, Georgia, near one of my hometowns. Now, folks, I say one of my hometowns because the sheriff has removed me from several. So it's not unusual in my career and position. Ask you to look inside at this, at a photograph, a headline, something you'll recognize if you see it again. The inside center section. The inside front page. And of course, the front page. Now, folks, this is an illusion. It's not a newspaper. It's an illusion of sight and sound. If you listen carefully, you'll actually believe you hear this newspaper tearing. You're not. If you watch closely, you'll actually believe you see this newspaper tearing. I am not tearing the newspaper. It's simply an illusion created for your entertainment. I've had people come up to, well, let me ask you this. How many of you actually believe I'm tearing the newspaper? How many of you don't believe I'm tearing the newspaper? How many of you don't really care one way or the other what I'm doing with the newspaper? Okay, smartest man in the crowd. Well, folks, I did not tear this newspaper. I simply created the illusion that it was being torn. And in fact, I can prove that this very moment. Because if I had torn this newspaper and made a mess out of it like this, it would be physically impossible for me, to do this. Ladies and gentlemen, that's my favorite illusion. You have been my favorite audience of the afternoon.
Yay!
Of course, you've been my only audience of the afternoon.
Yay!
And I want you to do this. When you're leaving here today, keep this thought in mind. When you're down and feeling blue, there's only one thing you can do. Pick up Doc Johnson's, take a drink. I guarantee it'll put you in the pink. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your kind attention this afternoon.